Chapter 5 of Man of Many Minds. This is a librivox recording. All librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. Recording by Judy Criz. Chapter 5. In the hotel room assigned him, George Hanlon threw himself on the bed and for an hour lay there reviewing this sudden, strange turn of events and all it presaged. He tried in vain to thrust out of his mind the astonished consternation of his classmates, the sneers of the Marines, and the jeers of the civilians there at the gate who had seen his disgrace. Almost in tears now, he realized at last this was but a prelude to years of being scorned and vilified as a despised outcast. Finally, he calmed a bit, then got up to pace the room, wondering what the next move would be. The answer came almost at once. A rap on the door disclosed a messenger with a package for him. On opening it, after the man had gone, Hanlon found the sleep instructor and reels. On top was a smaller reel marked Number 1. Listen to this awake. He plugged in the machine and put on the reel. It was his father's voice. You've got this far. Now begins your real work. You should be able to memorize the contents of these reels in 2 weeks. Briefly, here is what they contain. Simonides 4 was colonized under the direction of a Greek merchant who gave it his name. 4 is the only habitable planet. Most of the original inhabitants under him were of his nationality, and the present language is an outgrowth of modern Greek, which you know somewhat. There are now, of course, many variations and new words, terms peculiar to their growing and evolving culture. The reels give all this more fully. The last reel tells their history, geography, and economic situation as of today. Also details about their various large cities, especially New Athens, their capital. We believe you will find this city the best place to start your investigations. When you have these reels memorized, go to the bank, get your final instructions from the box, and your money for the trip. As to the problem, again briefly, this is it. In the past year or so, Federation agents have sensed a movement there and have not been able to interpret it. Whatever it is very, very secret. The agents can't even tell if it's political, religious, or merely social. Also, they have discovered that many important men, as well as dozens, maybe hundreds of less important men, have mysteriously disappeared. All this has the smell of trouble for the Federation. At last, the Secret Service was called in. We sent first 1 man, then a second. They tried to bore from within by joining whatever the movement was, but they haven't been able to get even a start. They've hit it and bounced. The second is still there, still trying. As a matter of fact, we have no evidence at all, merely a sort of hunch, or presentiment, of a plot against the peace and welfare of the federated planets. There may be nothing wrong at all, but we don't like to take chances. With your ability to read minds, you may be able to find out. We hope so. Hanlon thought the message was ended, but then the voice began again. I was told you came through your disgrace scene very well. I know just what you are undoubtedly feeling at the moment. Spence, how sick at heart you are, and I only wish there was some way of easing your pain. But it will pass. Good luck, son, and safe flights. Take care of yourself. We're all behind you. and by the devious ways you know you can call on any or all of us at need. These reels are all water-soluble, so dissolve them in the wash bowl and flush them down the drain as soon as you're through with each. For the next 2 weeks, Hanlon stayed fairly close to his room, studying by day from books obtained at the library the things he was learning at night via the sleep instructor. The evening of graduation day, he sat miserable in front of a video screen in his room, watching the broadcast of the stately ceremony of which he would have been a part, but for his decision to join the Secret Service. All the longings of the years he had wanted to become a part of the Interstellar Corps. All the hopes and plans he had made during his 5 long years in cadet school. All the thrilling pride he had known that he was to be part of the greater organization in the universe, swelled inside him and choked him. When at long last the class rose to take the oath of allegiance, Hanlon found himself on his feet, rigidly at attention, repeating the impressive ritual aloud with them. Now, for the first time, despite his decision and his private graduation, he truly felt himself a vital part of the corps. On the street, on his way to the library the following day, Hanlon chanced to meet a small group of his former classmates, now clad in their brand-new dress uniforms of sky blue and crimson, their new junior lieutenant's bars shining brightly. "Hi, fellows," he greeted them, only to be met by silent glares of contempt. "Aw, look, fellows, you know I was framed." Hanlon planted himself in front of them and made himself look hurt. Nor was that any effort. This really cut deep, but he had to play it out. Had to make them keep on thinking his disgrace was real. "You guys know I'd never do anything like that," he continued plaintively. "I didn't cheat. Didn't need to. I know I lost my head when he accused me. But anyone do that?" "You mean you were never caught cheating before?" Trowbridge sneered. "You sure had me, us, all fooled. Now scram, or else." He doubled his fists and took a step toward Hanlon. The latter still played out his string, but his heart was sick. He liked the fellows. They had been among his best friends for 5 long, happy years. Only now was he truly beginning to realize what a tremendous price he was paying, and would have to pay all his life. He stepped in and swung, and was instantly the target for flying fists. He was knocked down several times, but always managed to get up again. He had been well trained in fighting of all types, and now he was putting all his knowledge and skill into use, but only for defense and pretense of attack. Even so, he was getting badly mauled, for they were as well trained and were 5 to his 1. His clothes were dirty and ripped from the knockdowns, and a button was torn off his coat. His knuckles were skinned, and he could feel that his face was becoming a mass of bruises. A hard left connected with his mouth, and he spat out a broken tooth. "Attention!" A commanding voice suddenly broke in. Instantly, the 5 corpsmen jumped back, and so ingrained was the training he had received, so did Hanlon, to come at salute as they saw a high admiral climbing out of a ground cab at the curb. Hanlon instantly realized he wasn't in uniform, and was supposedly a discharged corpsman, quickly dropped his salute, and slouched truculently. "What's going on here?" the officer asked icily. "This man's a disgraced cadet, sir. Cheated on final exams," one of them explained. "He tried to talk to us." "It's a lousy lie," Hanlon rasped. "I was framed. The corpse, pah!" He spat in pretend disgust. I'm getting out of here just as damned quick as I can, and as far as I can. I'll go clear to Andromeda 7 if I can raise enough credits." Only he apparently saw the minute widening of the Admiral's eyes at that code word. The officer faced the new lieutenant sternly. "A corpsman is supposed to be able to handle 5 civilians, not 5 corpsmen to 1. If this man is a disgraced cadet, you have a right to feel as you do about him. But leave him alone. The years will bring him more sorrow and pain than you can with your fists. And you, fellow," turning to Hanlon, "don't think I'm interfering just to save your worthless skin." His tone was one of utmost contempt. "I just don't want corpsmen fighting on the street. Dismiss." The 5 saluted smartly and marched away. The Admiral winked briefly and with respect at Hanlon before re-entering the cab. But as the young man hurried back to his hotel to clean up, he was heartsick, remembering the many, many months of pleasant companionship with those boys, especially Dick Trowbridge, who had been his roommate and special chum all through cadet school, and who today had seemed particularly disgusted and vicious in that fight, giving up all that had made life so happy and wonderful was more than a fellow could bear. His bitter thoughts ran, what a fool he had been to let himself be talked into taking this on. Where were all those vast rewards his dad and Admiral Rogers had talked about so eloquently? How could anything possibly make up for losing the respect and friendship of everyone he had ever known? However, he had to admit, though still doubtfully, Dad had gone through it even to the point of giving up his son, and those last few weeks with his adored wife. Yet now seemed satisfied and content. Maybe there was something behind it all that time would prove, but it was mighty hard to take just the same. And this throbbing toothache didn't help his feelings any either. The exposed nerve in that broken tooth made it ache like blazes. He better get it fixed before it drove him mad. He started to go out, then stopped with the realization that he had no money of his own to pay a dentist for the extraction and a bridge. What do I do in a case like this? He wondered. Is it ethical in such a purely personal matter to use corpse funds? Dad didn't mention things of this sort. On the other hand, he said we got our salaries and expenses that way. Besides, you could say I lost the tooth in line of duty, and the corpse should replace it. He went on, found a dentist, and had the work done. Nor did he ever again feel doubt about spending the corpse money for things he actually needed. But neither did he ever spend any on purely personal pleasures or extra comforts, save as he needed to do so to play up to whatever position he assumed in the prosecution of his various assignments. Evening, however, found him still with that smothered feeling of self-pity about his fight with the fellows, and it persisted even after he went to bed. By the shade of Snyder, it wasn't fair to saddle a thing like this on a mere kid. It wasn't until after a couple of hours of tossing sleeplessness that he remembered he hadn't turned on the sleep instructor. Half rebelliously, he nevertheless got up and did so, and that little act broke his mood. He dropped to sleep almost immediately after returning to bed. At the end of the 2 weeks, Hanlon felt he knew both the Samodian language and its customs well enough to start working. He went to the bank, and deviously to Box 1044. Sorting through a thick sheaf of envelopes, He found one with his name on it. He took it to one of the cubicles, whose door he locked from the inside, setting up full coverage. As he read, there flashed to his mind the background of this other planet's situation, from his knowledge of political history within the Federation. He knew there was an ironclad agreement that each planet could choose its own form of government. Most of them chose the democratic form, but some had a type of fascistic state, one or two. The most advanced even had an anarchist state, with a very minimum of laws and governing. Simonides had, about a century earlier, reverted to the empire status, the only planet within the Federation to do so. It had originally been colonized as a worldwide republic, but later had broken up into 5 independent countries. As different sections became populated more heavily with people of other national backgrounds than Greek, these 5 countries had eventually been recombined after a spectacular coup as an empire. Then had come this belief of the core that something was brewing there that would affect the peace of the Federation, and the failure of their agents so far to find out about it. Now SSM Hanlon's orders were to take ship to Simonides 4 and seek to learn what he could about these guest-add conditions as swiftly as possible. If he gained any impressions of who or what group was behind this movement, he was to attempt to join it and ferret out that secret so it could be reported. With such information in their possession, the corps would know if it was anything inimical to the peace and security of the Federation, and would take the necessary steps. His instructions ended. The cost of a first-class ticket to Simonides is 750 credits, so you should draw enough to have at least 1,500 for all needed expenses. Take the Helene, which leaves Centropolis Spaceport Friday of this week. We have a good reason to believe that certain interesting people will be aboard that ship. Hanlon's mind raced. Evidently, someone wanted him to see what impressions or evidence he could pick up from those suspected persons. He grimaced as he realized the Secret Service had left it strictly up to him to discover who those interesting people were. Perhaps they looked on it as a sort of test, but he thrilled to the sudden awareness of what a wonderfully efficient and competent organization the Secret Service was, how it kept careful watch on all its members and assisted them in every possible manner. He dined on the edible plastic sheets, then left the safety deposit vault. He arranged for his ticket and reservations at the bank's travel agency, then went back to his hotel to pack. End of chapter 5.